Who is my neighbor? And what must I do to gain eternal life? We heard that a scholar of the law approached Jesus and asked him this question. And Jesus wanted to know what the scholar actually believed, so he asked him. And the scholar replied, I must love God with all my heart, with all my mind, all my strength, and my neighbor as myself. You know, this question is on the minds of many people today who sincerely believe in God and are trying to follow Jesus. In answering that scholar, that man, Jesus felt it important to explain more fully what loving one's neighbor implied. And so he proceeded to tell this story about the Good Samaritan. The story about the man who was robbed and who helped him and who didn't. Who is my neighbor? It seems to me that if Jesus is telling us that loving one's neighbor sets us on the road to gaining eternal life, that we would want to examine what this could mean. Our Holy Father, Pope Francis, addressed this very concern in a letter he shared with all of us this past Sunday on the feast of St. Francis of Assisi. He writes, when we truly love our neighbors, we are contributing to the rebirth of our communion with every person, always and everywhere. If the dignity of a person with disabilities, those experience poverty or lack of access to education is threatened, fraternity, love of neighbor will remain just another ideal. And he speaks of dark clouds that exist among us today that block our efforts to reach out and truly care for one another. He goes on to name some of those dark clouds, this pandemic that has taken hold, threats to the dignity of migrants, loss of the love of wisdom, and yes, abuse of technology. Are we prepared to accept what our Holy Father is saying to us today about what it means to love our neighbor? Jesus shared his example with us, and today we have the Vicar of Christ on earth sharing his convictions about what it means to love our neighbors. The heart of what our Holy Father is saying is in his letter, which is entitled Brothers All, or Fratelli Tutti. It's a meditation on the same parable that Luke's Gospel shared with us today, and that Jesus used with the young man who asked about inheriting eternal life. The parable of the Good Samaritan. And Pope Francis expands on what Jesus says and presents us with the basic decisions we need to make to rebuild our world and truly love our neighbor as ourselves. Our Holy Father spoke of a world today, God's kingdom, that is hurting and wounded. In the face of so much pain and suffering, he's urging us not to be among the robbers, nor those who abandon the weak, but be good Samaritans, those who bear the pain of other people's troubles rather than fomenting greater hatred and resentment. When we can come to identify with the least among us, we will at last be fratelli tutti, brothers of all